I'm 52. At this age, people start guarding silence. You listen to the ticking clock, the creak of floorboards, your own heartbeat. But 2 nights ago, the silence in my house ended, torn apart by the rustle of paper. We were sorting Grandma Vera's things. She died in January, as quietly as she'd lived her last years. Tea with lemon, a knitted blanket, a radio whispering 1940s jazz. The house stood empty, and as the eldest grandchild, I was responsible for putting everything in order. Dresser, wardrobe, top shelves. When you take an elderly life off the shelf, it's lighter than it looks. A couple of dresses, a box of old photographs, a jar of buttons, and one tin cookie box labeled recipes. There were no recipes inside. There were letters, neatly folded in half in old envelopes smelling of dust and mint. Some bore postmarks from the 1960s, Detroit, Chicago. I recognized my great-grandmother Liuba's handwriting, angular, nervous. Great-grandma is legend and whisper in our family. They say she gambled away paychecks and came home with other people's rings in her pockets. 10 children, 2 official marriages, and who knows how many stories between the lines. Grandma Vera was the eldest. She pulled herself up, as they say, by the hair out of the swamp. Under the letters lay a white envelope, new, unstamped. On it, "To Dan, open after my death." My name, a date at the bottom, 1998. I was 2 then. I called my father. He answered on the second ring, his voice sounding as though he'd been waiting all his life. "Found it?" he asked. "Found what?" "The letter. Open it alone." I wanted to ask why, but the line was already dead. I sat at the kitchen table. The night was sticky, warm, the window open. Far off, a dog barked at a train. I ran my finger along the crease and tore the paper. Inside were 3 pages, Grandma's familiar hand, clear, firm, without an elderly tremor. "Dan, my boy, if you're reading this, I'm needed only in memory now. Please read to the end and don't let this letter become a weapon. Truth spoken aloud is like a match. Sometimes you need it to bring light, sometimes it burns the house down." I turned the page. I had 2 husbands. First, Gleb, handsome, quick, smelling of gasoline and cheap tobacco. He brought home laughter and bruises. When he was run out of the state for theft, I thought it was our salvation. I raised your father and his sister Lisa alone. Then came Harry, warm, calm, hands that could fix anything. I believed he'd bring us silence. But silence never came. Lisa was stubborn like me, hungry for love like I once was. I'll take the blame, though each bears their own steps. Something happened between Lisa and Harry that mustn't be spoken of. A year later, Lisa had a boy. She named him Charlie so we could all pretend his father was her high school sweetheart, Carl. Pretend, Dan. I did too, because I believed sometimes a lie is better than another blaze. Charlie is your cousin, and he is Harry's son. I set the page aside. My chest tightened as if air hit bone. Charlie, my brother in Sunday barbecues, in Christmas cards, in the word kin that sometimes means nothing and sometimes everything. I remembered wondering as a kid why Charlie was taller and darker than his brothers, why he had the same jug-eared grin Harry wore in photos. Back then, I couldn't add faces into equations. I read on. I thought that was all. We'd paid. But the Lord loves repeating lessons for the unlearned. Lisa's last son, Alex, was born 10 years after Charlie, and his father isn't Carl. His father is Carl's brother, young, angry at a world he felt owed him. He came to fix the car, brought beer, left quarrels. Lisa thought she held men on a leash. In fact, she ran from her own emptiness and clutched any hand, even one leading her off a cliff. Dan, I'm not writing for you to hate. I write so you won't search for enemies in the mirror. Our blood holds many mistakes, your great-grandmother's, mine, Lisa's. But blood is only a road. You don't have to take it. When the time comes, you'll decide whether Charlie should know the truth. If yes, tell him his father wasn't a monster. Harry was weak. Weakness isn't an excuse, but neither is it innate darkness. Harry died never knowing. Lisa lives never understanding. I tell you this not because I trust, but because I love. You're the one who can listen to silence. Just don't let it become a grave for truth. Your Grandma Vera. I stared at the final period. It looked like an entrance to a tunnel. The fridge rattled, an elevator clanged somewhere, and the world felt ordinary again. But the words had sunk so deep I didn't notice my nails digging crescents in the paper. I called my father again. He picked up quickly. "You knew?" I asked. "About Charlie, yes," he said. "About Alex, too." "And you stayed silent?" Vera asked. And I remembered too well how every word tears us apart. I chose to live. Maybe cowardice. Maybe wisdom. He paused. I heard him breathe. "Dan," he went on, "you take after her. You'll want to fix everything. But sometimes fixing means repeating others' mistakes. Think before you strike the match." I hung up and stayed in the dark. One thought pounded. Charlie. His laugh on fishing trips when he stole my sandwich. His thanks to Grandma. When I left, I placed wildflowers in the vase and took the letter. Not to hide the truth because it wasn't time. Sometimes love isn't immediate confession. Sometimes love is choosing the moment a person can bear it. But life, as usual, ignores our plans. A week later, Dad, my cousins, and I gathered for Mom's birthday. Nothing foretold anything. Carl, Big Carl, talked about rebuilding old trucks down to the bolts. His younger brother Dave, the very one Grandma wrote of, poured cranberry liqueur and joked he was growing older sideways, not wiser. Charlie arrived last with a cake and a grin, as always. When the candles died and we clapped, I saw Charlie look at my father, not his, mine. A second's glance, but packed with a lifelong question. After dinner, I stepped onto the porch to breathe. Charlie followed. We listened to July's cicadas. "Have you ever felt out of place?" he asked suddenly. "Constantly," I said, "especially in my own family." He chuckled. "Funny, I thought it was my private weirdness. Like," he hesitated, "like I'm placed in a painting where everyone knows the plot, but I never got the script." I felt the letter in my pocket turn heavy as stone. "Charlie," I said, "there's something you should read. You can refuse." He met my gaze, steady. "I've always wanted to know, even if it hurts." We sat in the car. I handed him the envelope. He read slowly. Lips trembled, fingers chilled though the heat was fierce. When he finished, his eyes held no blame, only emptiness, vast as a field after fire. "So," he whispered, "Harry and Alex," he broke off. "You realize this changes everything." "It changes facts," I replied. "Not how you loved Grandma, not who you've become." He buried his face in his hands. I waited. After a minute, he lowered them. "I'll tell Lisa," he said, "but not today, not tomorrow. First, I need to figure myself out. And thank you for giving me the choice." That night, he left without goodbyes. Next day, he texted, "I'm okay. Love you, brother." And a fish emoji, our childhood joke. A month later, what I feared happened. Dave, Carl's kid brother, dropped by Lisa's with booze. They argued. Words flew like knives. Lisa shouted, "Shut up. You know whose son I had from you." A neighbor heard every syllable, paper-thin walls. By morning, the street knew.
By night, the whole family. Charlie called me. Vera was right, he said. A word is a match. But you know, looks like the house was soaked in gasoline anyway. We met at the box of letters. He placed Grandma's letter back, beside Great-Grandma Lyuba's. He picked one at random, opened it. Tears filled the page. Verochka, forget.
He offered me his hand. We held on. No drama, no tears, just firmly. 6 months have passed. Lisa left to ride it out with a friend. Carl isn't speaking to me yet. Alex stays oddly calm. Maybe he's always known without naming it. Dad answers the phone more often, and I still listen to the silence at home. But now it carries a new sound, the rustle of pages. The box of letters holds no more secrets, only memory. And one line I return to whenever I doubt. Blood is a road. You don't have to walk it. From Moon Thing